Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Illuminating Insights. We're joined today by Marc Rix. Marc is a SAFe Fellow and methodologist on the framework team at Scaled Agile. He writes, consults, trains, and speaks internationally on some of the most challenging topics facing today's technology in organizations. Marc specializes in practical application of Lean Agile, product-oriented methods, and producing game-changing results. We're so excited to have you here today, Marc. You are one of the first people I met when I started in this industry, so I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today. Now,
It's fantastic to be here.
when I met you, you were the DevOps guy, but that's not who you are anymore. Tell us, what is it that you specialize in today? Because I'd love to hear the story of how you have grown up in this organization, in this industry, kind of as I have as well. But I'd love to hear
Yeah,
your story of what you do today.
yeah, that was kind of how we got started together, right? We met in DevOps circles, and then everything just kind of exploded from there. Yeah, I did have an interesting 15 minutes of fame back a few years ago in um, a very interesting field for me, and an unlikely field for me. So I just kind of found myself in the DevOps realm out of necessity and opportunity. So my background is part technical, it's part business. I have a business degree. I don't have a technical degree or a computer science degree or an engineering degree like many of my peers have had as I've grown up through the technology ranks. Um, but I've always been very business minded, and I've been in either consulting or transformation and coaching roles throughout my career. So I've always been focused on doing things differently, but doing things differently in a way that produced a business result. So uh, about 2014, wow, time does fly. About 10 years ago, I found myself as a technology leader. I was VP of engineering and architecture at a large financial services company in the US. And um, my boss and my boss's boss realized that I had an agile background. And at the time, we needed to transform. So I was asked if I wanted to lead a transformation to agile, lean, that kind of stuff. But DevOps wasn't in the picture at that point. So I desperately wanted to get to back to my agile roots. This was a big bureaucratic company, and I was really trying to get things moving with change and agility and lean thinking. So this was my opportunity. I took the chance to lead the change effort, and brought in Scaled Agile. So we did that. We implemented SAFe, and within 2 or 3 months, we were flying. We were doing everything that was promised with SAFe. We were developing software faster. Our teams were more engaged. As we were higher performing on a software development level than we had ever been in the organization before. So that was great. The problem was we weren't actually getting to market with any of these products any faster because we still needed to get through the back end of the pipeline, right? We needed to get through integration testing and operations and through release management and actually into production. So that's where things were really sticking for us. So that's when I needed a solution. And at the time, SAFe didn't have a DevOps component. So I collaborated with some of my peers across the organization, and we put together basically a DevOps team to go solve that problem of the last mile of delivery. So we needed to be able to take this software that we were producing that was piling up and get it into production. So we did that. So through the course of doing that, I developed a DevOps team and a set of DevOps capabilities within this environment and bolted it on to a Scaled Agile implementation. And the result was now we were able to go much faster with much higher quality and predictability throughout the entire pipeline, all the way from inception to impact into production. And I became a little famous inside the organization for that. And then I left the organization to do more transformation consulting. And I think this is when we started to cross paths. I became a SAFe partner and was doing enterprise implementations of SAFe with a DevOps component. caught the attention of Scaled Agile, and then that's when I kind of became the DevOps guy, because I was out there in the field helping to pioneer some of these DevOps concepts that were very compatible with the Scaled Agile framework. And then just through sort of the natural course of developing courseware and integrating with Scaled Agile and the people and the community and our partners, just through that, like you said, I kind of became known as the DevOps guy. And then found myself on the framework team here at Scaled Agile, writing more about DevOps. But I've drifted away from that because I didn't want my 15 minutes of fame in the DevOps world to define me, because I had a life before DevOps, and I continue to do things that are not explicitly DevOps related. Although earlier today I did a webinar on DevOps, so I guess I'm not completely away from being the DevOps guy. But for me, it's all about it's always been about doing things that matter to the business. And I will find the right tools. I go where the value is. I do what my customers need me to do with whatever tools and whatever techniques are available. So I moved into the safe realm and I moved into the DevOps realm because those were serving a business need and making my customers happy and putting food on my table. I needed to demonstrate tangible results and be successful, right? But these were the tools that were in my bag that helped me, my teams, and my customers and my business partners be as successful as we could be. And so I doubled down on it and really saw the power of moving quickly with DevOps and the kind of transformative order of magnitude kinds of results it could bring, along with an agile, lean way of working throughout the organization. So I just really got into it. But now, as DevOps has evolved as a community and as a way of working and as a discipline, I too have evolved. And I'm still kind of following where DevOps is headed. DevOps is starting to bleed, actually not starting to, it's spreading very quickly throughout the enterprise into non-technical parts of the organization, right? So now people on the business end and in product management and deep in engineering and operations and infrastructure are talking about DevOps and principles and the practices that underlie it. So as these ways of working, lean, agile, and DevOps ways of working spread more into the enterprise, I find myself spreading myself more across the enterprise. And that has led me to more of the edge of these transformations where technology meets the business. And because of my business background, I find that really interesting. And for the last couple of years, I've really gone deep into that space, sort of that interesting edge, sort of the edge of the known universe of safe transformations and agile transformations where technology meets the business, where really interesting things happen and strange conversations happen. Trying to understand that space, understanding the various languages and the stakeholders and the metrics and the tools and the practices that are necessary to scale agility beyond the engineering teams, the IT teams, more into the enterprises for bigger and bigger and bigger enterprise level results.
Sure, sure. Now, as you're doing that, and that's a lot of what we're doing as well, is really it isn't just about IT, it's about the entirety of the business. And we've been doing that, gosh, since 2016. It's about the entire organization, because if IT is producing software value faster, but the rest of the organization isn't ready to receive it, what value are you actually delivering? So we have to work with the entirety of the organization to help with transformational change. So what are you seeing? What kinds of conversations are you having with leaders to really help move that transformation forward?
Mm. Right now, it's very much a value conversation. Where's the value? So I think back in the good old days, I'm starting to call these the golden days of Agile, where it kind of sold itself. Everybody wanted it, right? It was the new shiny object. Although, to us who've been in the industry for a long time, it wasn't so new, but it was starting to catch on with some of the late majority and the later adopters. But there was a time when everybody needed Agile and enterprises were just throwing all the money they could at these agile transformations. And, people like me and probably you and others that we know would show up at the scene and we would do our jobs, right? Well, right now with everything else that's going on, technology-wise and disruption-wise, and the options that people now have across, a broad spectrum of ways of working and solutions and methods, more questions are being asked about the value of these transformations. And that value question has evolved from how is this going to help product delivery to how is this going to help the business? So if we transform, if we adopt these ways of working, or if we do it this particular way, how's that going to benefit the enterprise? So this is more of a business level, more of a financial conversation with presumed economic results rather than the classic results that we in the industry, especially engineering, have always tended to focus on, which is more throughput oriented, right? We want to get more things through the pipeline faster and with higher quality. For many, many years, we've evaluated our success and the success of our teams and our pipelines and our organizations on sort of those outputs, right? How much output can we produce in a shorter amount of time, but with higher quality? And that was the value proposition of Agile for so long. Well, now it's about outcomes. And it's not just technical outcomes, it's business outcomes. So how are we really moving the needle on business outcomes that traces to outcomes that are seen in the market?
So it's all about what's the strategy that we're working towards? What is it that the business is trying to do, and how can we help the organization overall? And it doesn't really so much tie to what's the widget we're producing, but it's how are we helping the strategy move forward?
Exactly. And so as I find myself in front of more and more executives, and more of these executives are on the business side, they're C-suite executives, and they're sort of reflecting the needs of their markets and their board members and their investors. We're having, different conversations than I've had with other stakeholders in the past about transformations. Well, now it's a business transformation conversation. It's not a technology transformation or an agile transformation conversation. It's how do we improve the business? How do we transform the business? And one very interesting conversation that I will never forget happened to me in about March of this year when I was able to go out to Australia and New Zealand for a couple of weeks on a little road show. It was primarily Gemba. So I was talking with many of my customers and prospective partners out there, and some of our community members and experts who happen to be in the territory, just learning about what they were doing. So I had the opportunity to speak with many senior people at many senior level organizations and understand more of what they needed from a transformation standpoint. And 100% of them, bar none, had a business conversation or wanted to have a business conversation. And one of these in particular, I found myself in the room with a CEO, a CIO who had invited me in, and head of HR. And I had an hour with these people just to kind of rap about transformation. They knew who I was, and I was there as a representative from Scaled Agile. So they knew this, but we really had no set agenda. But we started the conversation with me asking questions about their business. So we got through the introductions, and then I turned to the CEO and I asked him just to tell me about his business. What are you trying to accomplish here? What are your goals? What are your aspirations? And what kind of pressures and opportunities are you sensing in your markets? And it was interesting that this is a CEO of a kitchen and bath company. So very little technology, although technology is becoming more and more playing more and more of a prominent role in his business. But he was the CEO of this kitchen and bath company that had been losing market share. So what was keeping him up at night was not, how many features we can push through the delivery pipeline faster, or how many technology-based solutions we can pump out of the organization to our customers' hands as fast as possible. It was, how do we transform the business so that we can capture more market share? There's an opportunity here to win in the market, And we've seen some erosion in our market share over the past several years. So we need to recapture that, but we also see an opportunity to go further, faster, and leapfrog the competition. So, Mark, I want to talk about that from a transformation perspective. So different kind of conversation, right? But uh, that led to a deeper conversation about the goals and the values of their executive team, what they were really trying to accomplish and what they were really measuring, what success really looks like for them. And what success looked like for them was not the number of people trained in a new way of working or the number of agile release trains launched over a given amount of time or the number of features that they could deliver over a given time frame, whether it's sprints or quarters or whatever. It was, how do we regain market share? And we talked about a couple other economic indicators. So now here I was, DevOps guy, engineer, and Scaled Agile expert, and an expert in transforming the ways of working within IT organizations, having a face-to-face conversation with these senior executives at a business level about how to transform the business using the techniques that we have in our bag. So that was a very interesting conversation, very revealing for me. And since then, I've had many, many more conversations like this that have allowed me to get inside the minds of senior executives in the C-suite, both business and technology and other functions throughout the enterprise, to really understand what they're facing in the market right now, which is huge, huge disruption from many different angles. And they're trying to reconcile this. And a small part of that is what the technology teams are doing to support it. So that really started to shift my mindset into more of, how do we think about transformation and agile, lean, and DevOps and other ways of working, complementary ways of working, not in the terms that we've always thought about them, how we transform these technical teams so that we can improve product delivery, but recognizing and appreciating that we're all part of a larger system that's trying to have a bigger impact in the market and trying to serve our customers in better ways.
It's very interesting, and I think that goes along with a lot of the conversations that we're hearing, especially when we get, you know, a lot of us together. I've heard at several conferences over the past, 6, 12, 18 months. People aren't buying agile anymore. People aren't looking for agile transformations anymore. They're looking for holistic business transformations. And that goes, it's very congruent with what you're sharing there. And it's what we're seeing in a lot of the marketplace. They want to see how we can shift the entirety of the organization. I'm actually hearing more about, how do I build a strategy management office? How do I realize value from my organization rather than transform my IT, transform technology?
Mhm.
And so it's very, very common to what you're saying here. So if you had, like a group of leaders, cross industry in the room, what would you want them to know about how do we actually start to move these things forward? Because these aren't small efforts. How do we actually help them get this started? Because it's one thing to ask the questions and explore, but it's another thing to actually take action, because we have to start somewhere.
Right, exactly. Um, I, I completely agree. The conversation has changed, the language has changed, the priorities have changed, the funding is shifting in many ways, and we need to be prepared for those kinds of conversations. I think underneath it all, what I am seeing though is that Agile is no less useful today than it was yesterday. Agile and lean ways of thinking, the principles and the practices are still very much in demand, but maybe from a different vantage point. People aren't going in search of agile transformations per se. They're going in search of compelling business results and business change. So they want the results. It's hard to get the results without these lean, agile ways of working in place. So I think what is needed is a firm, strong, agile, and lean foundation, and these modern ways of working. Also, product management and uh, user experience design and human-centric design and everything that goes into the package with transforming these ways of working still are very relevant. It's not that enterprises need a different approach or need different practices in place. I think the recognition now is that that's not the end-all be-all of the proposition. The results need to come with it. And in many cases, the ways of working need to be in place as a foundation in order to deliver those kinds of results. So I think the executives who are looking for change and meaningful change and better business results don't want to have an agile conversation per se. They want to have a conversation about what our objectives are, what tangible economic results we need to show, and how that's going to affect positively our customers and our markets. So I think there's still a demonstrated need for the transformations and the ways of working, but those transformations now need to come with results. So now we all are being held directly accountable for showing that we can produce these results right up front as part of the conversation. And I really appreciate these senior leaders for putting the spotlight on us and holding us accountable for these kinds of expectations. Okay, so with that out of the way, your question was, if we were to sit down with these executives, what kind of conversation would we have with them? How would we advise them to start? Well, through all of my conversations with successful transformation efforts, I'll include the unsuccessful ones too, because those are good at weeding out the bad habits. There's maybe one tried and true, which seems to be tried and true, time-tested way to get started with a big transformation like this, and that is to start with one thing, to focus on one thing. And you mentioned you've got to start somewhere, right? I think this is connected to that. So the advice I would give would be to find a place to start in the organization for whatever reason, whether that's whether you're motivated by changing the way of working, or whether you're motivated by producing a different result, or reconfiguring some part of your business, or introducing a new product line, or whatever it is, right? Whatever is hurting the most, go there, or whatever is hurting in a way that you can address relatively quickly that represents an opportunity for change. And if it were to change, it could fuel more of an effort. It could lead to more change. Start there. So find that one place to start. Focus on that intently. Put all of your energy into making a difference there, and then use that success to fan the flames of the rest of the transformation. This is where one change and one win can turn into 2 wins, can turn into 4 wins, and 8 wins and 16 wins. And that's sort of where we get the proof points we need to start a transformation and get incremental buy-in for doing more and more and more throughout the organization. So I think the corollary to that is, don't do the opposite. Don't try to boil the ocean. Don't try to tackle everything at once. And it may seem cliche, because I'm sure people have heard this before, and we as change leaders and change agents say this a lot, but I think it bears repeating, because I still see so many organizations struggle with this. They want to do too much too soon. They think that, or they imagine, or they hope that they can change everything in one project or initiative or one effort, without really going through the meaningful change, the deep change, the psychological change, the cultural change, along with all of the technical change and the practice change and the skill changes that go along with these kinds of transformations. Start with one, get good, and scale from there.
And change management is still key, regardless of how you're changing your organization.
You have to be able to manage the change. Yes. This is not something you could just pick up a book and read about and implement, unless you've done this before, and unless you really understand how to manage change. But yeah, it's got to be thoughtful, concerted, with respect for the people involved, and respect for the complexity of organizational change. Yeah. So even starting in one place with one goal is complex enough to not make success a slam dunk.
For sure, for sure. Marc, it's been so great catching up with you today. Any final thoughts for our listeners?
You know, sure. Maybe one thing that we haven't touched on, but it underlies all of this is the need to understand our customers.
So true.
There's a
So
there's a lot there's a lot that we do in the transformation game, right? And we can get so wrapped up in the metrics and the practices and the principles and the ways of working and how to transform this and how to roadmap out these transformations and who's doing what at which times. There's, like we just said, there's a lot of complexity wrapped up in these transformations and really what we're trying to accomplish. And so much of that can keep us focused inwardly on the transformation itself rather than the result that we're trying to produce. And that result we're trying to produce should move the needle on business indicators. But those business indicators are tied to the happiness, the engagement, the loyalty of our customers, whoever they are, whether they're internal or external. So one of the keys to success always has been, and right now in this time of mass disruption, it's particularly important, and that is just to be relentlessly focused on your customers, what they need, what you can give them, and including them in the process, and not thinking that once you understand a customer need or once you have a request or a need articulated from a customer, that you just need to go and build it and you can get it right the first time. This is still a process of continuous experimentation, continuous learning. So accept that, embrace that. We still need to be agile. We still need to be iterative, and we still need to involve our customers the whole way. So we need to shorten the distance between us and our customers, however we can do that. So the fewer proxies we have between us and our customers, the better off we can be. But deeply, deeply know your customers, who they are, work with them, and make everything you do throughout your transformation, your product delivery, your product discovery, your leadership, uh, your business goals, your business transformations, directly focused on what your customers need. And then make sure that you have alignment on those needs across the organization so everyone is singing from the same sheet of music.
I think that's a great, great thought for us to end on. And thank you for bringing up internal customers because sometimes I don't think we really think about those folks enough. Marc, it has been so fun, as I said, catching up with you. Thank you for making time to visit with us today.
You bet, Trisha. Thanks for having me. That was amazing. Thanks for the chat.
Awesome. And this is this episode of Illuminating Insights. We will catch you all next time.